If you could pick, how do you want to die? In my bed. Of natural causes. At 2500. The day you turn 2500, the day before your 2501st birthday, or somewhere in between? In my sleep peaceful like. On the opposite end, definitely not from slipping in the shower on the slick floor lathered and shampooed up, from hitting my head on the spigot as I fall to my demise. I read about someone who dies in a shower after slipping and hitting her head, but it wasn't blunt force, her hair clogged the drain and she drowned. I'm not an emotional person, and reading bad things, or even awful things, normally doesn't faze me, but that story got me. That sounds like a simply outstanding way to go. A great end to a long life. I bet he was a great man. He was a playful, relaxed soul. I hope to one day be described as such. That's touching. He sort of reminds me of my own father, who was a physician and surgeon. He had some mini strokes, and after each one, dementia appeared and got worse. But he stayed sweet and active and tried to join in the conversation whenever he could. Everyone loved him. At the end, I rushed to the hospital. His eyes were closed. I held his large hand. I shouted, "Dad." He opened one eye and looked at me with a small smile. Then he let go and never opened his eyes again. As long as I held his hand, even as a grown woman, I felt safe. Even though he was in a coma. That hand always made me feel safe. He always loved me and I loved him. When I let go of his hand, the world was different for me. Even now, 14 years later, I think he was waiting to see me one more time. Then he slipped away. But never out of my heart. No, never out of my heart. That's such a great story. There's a good article out there called How Doctors Die, something like that, that talks about how most doctors die at home, while most other people die in a hospital. Your uncle being a doctor made me think about that, and it sounds like your uncle was in that boat. Thanks for sharing this story, Smile. Pain-free, most of all. I hope to live a relatively long life, but not long enough to need people to change my diapers. No thank you. I have always said that. If someone has to change my diapers, I want them to give me a go-to-sleep forever pill. I am a big supporter of legal, well-regulated euthanasia. I think everyone should have the choice in when they go. Nobody should be forced to go through huge amounts of pain and indignity at the end of their lives. It is really cruel in so many cases. When we were making a decision to put our dog down or not, the vet said, think of his 3 favorite things to do and ask yourself if he can still do them. If not, what sort of quality of life is that? It made sense. And then I think of how many humans die, not only unable to do their favorite things, but unable to go to the toilet, feed themselves, even breathe on their own. And that is what makes me in favor of legal euthanasia. Being hit by a meteor. The idea of a space rock that could have traveled millions of miles through space and only to have its journey timed up perfectly with where I am at the moment would be crazy. I mean, the odds would literally be astronomical. The epicenter of your own Tunguska, or just leave a small crater? No. Big enough to nuke the world. Don't want to die alone after all. Right next to the detonation of a nuclear bomb. I watched a video which stated that you would die before the impulses from your sensory nerves were able to travel through your nervous system to register the pain. You would literally die and not know what happened. Pretty terrifying when you think about it. That as I'm typing this, I could literally just disappear and not even know without warning. I'm sure the call out from a nearby operator, nuke inbound, as someone received their 30th kill in a row, would be warning enough. TBH. Edit. Thank you for the awards, kind strangers. God, well, this doesn't happen too often. I knew you were dead before you did. You got up here fast. Gotta get in line before everyone else. It'll be real congested as soon as everyone files in. Like my grandma, her heart stopped suddenly while sleeping, must have been painless. Changed my mind, I just remembered she died alone, without having anyone around for 1 week. She had 13 kids, which are my aunts and uncles, so I guess she was used to have people around. Pretty sad. I wondered. If your heart stops beating, are you still alive for a few minutes and eventually die from hypoxia or whatever it is? If awake, you'll only be so for a few seconds. Death is a process rather than a single event. It would depend how you're defining being dead, but yes, technically if your heart isn't pumping blood around, then your brain isn't getting the bits it needs, mainly oxygen, and dies from that. I want to be right beside a nuclear bomb as it detonates. You'd probably die before you could even think what that metal box thingy is.